your vision board is being created because you're having this downloaded moment, right? Like of you connecting with this future self of you. But your vision board is just showing you just breadcrumbs. It's just showing you the tip of the iceberg of like your whole life's journey, or how far extended that manifestation goes. It's something you have to live through. So basically your perception and your reality of where you're at is very limited. The control that you might feel, the ego pushes that you might feel, the wishful thinking, it's a matter of knowing that you're probably still stuck in thinking that you're going to have this manifestation right here, right now, with the way you are wanting it to happen. But instead, when you zoom out of that, when you surrender my will to thy will, when you let the feminine follow, you're just surrendering to this beautiful version that you've yet to live into, this beautiful vision that has yet to be expressed, but again, just in a different way than what you may expect it to be. Hey soul babes, welcome to the Essence Podcast. I'm your host, Riss, and in this space, consider me your spiritual bestie here, giving you the tools, knowledge, and wisdom you need to reconnect back to your essence. This podcast is also all about remembering that you're a unique soul on your own unique journey. So what that means is that you have a unique, tailored essence that can only be expressed by you. I cannot, nor your other bestie cannot, nor your neighbors or your teachers can express this better than you can. So it's about getting into the driver's seat of owning it, front center stage, mind, body, soul connection of being like, yes, this is who I am, and I love it. And basically you just stop copying and pasting what other people expect from you, but more so like what you expect for yourself to have in this lifetime. And to dive into this week's episode, we are talking about manifesting. Yes. So many ways we can manifest. We can manifest from a heart center. We can like really just surrender and go with the flow. Then there's another way where we manifest, and that way becomes a little bit wonky, a little bit unaligned, and that is usually through control. Sometimes we might manifest through wishful thinking that it's going to happen our way. If it doesn't happen our way, then it's the highway. And so this is exactly what I want to dive into and give you a bit of my own way of manifesting. Especially when it came to something like manifesting Malibu, like living in Malibu. That was a fine line of how I perceived that was going to happen, right? Living in Malibu, and spirit showing me that there's other plans. There's a better way to get to Malibu than the way that I'm thinking. So basically, I'm going to also be sharing here how I manifested a bestie in Malibu to help me be able to make my vision board come to life. So grab your tea, grab your crystals, whatever you need to get grounded, and let's dive in.
In your divine essence you shine. In your divine essence you thrive. I'm your host, Riss, and you're listening to Essence Podcast.
Alrighty, so welcome to season 3 of Essence Podcast. Your girl has moved up a level. Woo woo. It feels so nice and so yummy to be back on here for a season 3, really honoring and living in my truth, in my authenticity. And that is really the goal of what I want to mirror back to you, to show you that the more that you practice, the more that you show up, the more you get closer to your own beautiful essence. You have an idea to start a project, a hobby, or even a new way of living that you keep thinking about. Traveling more, changing your routine, creating something of your own, or experiencing more of what you actually want. And you've most likely been sitting on this idea for weeks, months, even years. You come across other people doing the same exact thing, and you know in your heart you could be doing this too. But the question is, how do you start? Or if you have started, how do you fully commit to embodying it? And trust me, I've been there before with those same exact questions. Once I finally started listening to myself, I came across something so vital. Most of the decisions I was making were based on logic. I kept repeating what I was familiar with and felt uncomfortable with sharing what I truly wanted. When I discovered this is why my visions felt so impossible to embody or even start, I learned how to get my feminine and masculine energy to work together instead of against each other. And with this knowledge, I built a container called the Creatrix Within, one-on-one mentorship program. In this 8-week journey, I will guide you through learning how to trust your visions, commit to your ideas, and start creating the life you truly want to experience. Click the link in my bio and let's start turning your one day into something you begin today. So I had shared with you in the beginning that this is about how I was having a tug-of-war moment with manifesting Malibu. But to backtrack a little bit, I do want to show you my whole vision board so you can just get a feel before I share the story and the manifestation practice that I did by giving you a little visual. So this was my very first vision board in 2021. Basically, when I graduated in 2019 out of college, I was like, okay, trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to do. And then 2020 hit, pandemic hit, of course. And I was in a pivotal moment of like, who am I? What am I going to do with my life? And that's when I got into holistic healing. I was being able to find beautiful spiritual people who were leading the way for me to be inspired. And one of them was teaching about vision boarding and manifesting. And so this became my very first vision board in 2021. I wrote down the date. So it was a new moon in Cancer, July 9th, 2021. I put technically it was July 10th at 12 a.m. So I guess I was vision boarding in the middle of the night. And this was my very first manifestation / vision board. And as you can see here, I was really capturing a lifestyle. I was really capturing moments that I really wanted to live out. And it became, the boho style, the very beach vibe, goddess, sea goddess, working with tarot cards and traveling. And there it is, Malibu. So during this time of making this vision board, my boyfriend and I were also going through a transition. We were moving from one apartment to another apartment. But the second apartment we had moved into was just for 6 months. It was a 6-month lease before we had to look for another place. So I feel like that's essentially why I put Malibu on here as well, was because we were at that time in a transitional place. And what I thought could happen was that we would live there. Like we would be able to maybe make it happen. I was like, again, I was just at the early stages of understanding manifestation. So to me, it seemed very possible, like anything could happen. But I wasn't really matching my reality to what I was envisioning just a little bit. Like I was, but I also wasn't. I was being a little bit more like carefree of like, maybe this could happen. So at that time, especially during the halfway house that we were in of that 6 months, I was not working at all. And I was barely contributing to any of the bills. My boyfriend was holding down the fort. And so thinking about Malibu was just like a bit of delusion, yes, but also like I was willing to give it a shot. So I remember during that time I was starting to like look up different rental spaces, very expensive, of course, where we were at that time having like a 1-bedroom, and looking at these rental spaces of like that 1-bedroom in Malibu being way more expensive, and the only cheapest one we could find to like rent would be like a studio. And so it was like, are we gonna downgrade, or are we going to like, not do that and just find something more realistic? So it was like that fine line, right? And part of me was like, dang, I really want Malibu. I really want this to happen. And if you have followed my journey from the beginning of time, you would also see that I was really on a roll of making everything on this vision board happen. Like I was willing to embody it, to do it myself, DIY it. Everything from this triangle shelf to these crystals to this wood piece, like everything I was doing my best to embody myself. But one of the hardest things was going to be embodying Malibu, like living there. That was not going to be as realistic. This is where I was starting to see like my ego starting to pop up. My ego was really trying to like make it happen, like control the outcome of this manifestation. But the alignment of like my money flow to the timing, everything was just not, it was not there. So my idea was then to just like see if I could like cover it up, because I was like, if I can't have it, then why is it here on this board? Like, I need to just let it go, let it be. But that would ruin this beautiful masterpiece that I was like, I had an intention for it, but it just wasn't aligned just then and there. So I ended up leaving it, of course, and I gave it time to incubate and to have space to do its thing, because at that point I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm not going to be able to move to Malibu. It is what it is. So let me focus on other things, in which I did. I decided that instead of focusing on the how things were going to happen, or, trying to make logical sense of it and trying to get results now, I decided that I'm going to shift and continue just focusing on everything else that I was manifesting. So with that journey and that momentum, I was still embodying that holistic wellness practice by being inspired, doing yoga, following people on Instagram and other socials where I was being able to learn about energy, learn about spirituality. And I remember one of the beautiful souls who crossed my path on social media was Danielle Fisher. I actually had her on my podcast my first season, and she talked about breath work, and she's a breathwork facilitator. So at that time, I had been scrolling on social media and, found her page, and I loved her essence. I loved the way she was like just being able to like be the sea goddess, and she was living in Bali, and like it was a whole moment where I fell in love with her. And so I followed her and I let the magic do its thing with like my vision board working in other ways. And instead of forcing it, I just sort of went with it. And I was willing to invest, and I took a 2-month journey with her, and her capsule, her container of what she was doing with the breath work was also called a rebirthing breath work. So what was happening in that session was basically me going back in time and being able to rebirth myself, like going back and seeing how I was birthed out, like what complications were going on, like what I was feeling. It became a portal of me rebirthing myself into this new version that was going to match this whole ass vision board. And so what I was seeing was not how my journey was like coming out to be. Like it was, obviously becoming way more aligned and better to match my flow and my essence and where it needs to meet me. But it was just wild on like how I'm zooming out and talking about it, that like I was literally going through a rebirthing process with Danielle and having this new initiation of life. And the more that I was like working with her, the more I was being open and intuitive and trusting and allowing. It was basically like the feminine was being able to express herself within me and was able to move and dance and create unapologetically. And so that became basically what I was doing in this time frame, especially with us living in that 6-month gap of living in that apartment with that lease and just following the breadcrumbs of like what my vision board was showing me. And during that time again, so it wasn't only just working with Danielle, but it was also getting familiar with guided meditations. I was like so in love with doing guided meditations and like being able to speak very softly and very calmly. And of course, the breath work was playing a part in that, where it was just tapping into this other persona. And that beautiful embodiment led me to an idea of reaching out to a meditation studio that was close by my house at the time, and taking a trip there and seeing maybe, hey, I could host a class there, or maybe I could join a class. So I end up going to this studio close by my house. And once I arrived there, this is where the story starts to change, where I was like, when I arrived there, I was like, I don't think I'm here for what I thought I was here for. Like, I didn't even end up talking about the like holding any classes, any guided meditation classes, or even joining. Instead, I just kind of like pivot my energy to seeing like, why am I here? Like, what's the whole point of me being here? Like, it wasn't for that. So I took a moment to just like browse around because there was also like crystals in this store, and then there was also a bookshelf. So as I was like, looking around the bookshelf, I was at that time, again, I only had like a few bucks in my bank account. I did not have a lot of money, but I was willing to invest in whatever I saw there, whether it be a crystal or a book, because that's how much I was like willing to just consume and to be able to, take these little breadcrumbs as like moments of growth. And looking at this bookshelf, I was just like, okay, yeah, they're all used. I don't know. I'm not finding anything catchy. And then I come across one book, and I wasn't even really paying attention to the title. What really caught me was the author's name. And the author's name was Clarissa. And at that time, I was just so amazed because I hardly run into anybody named Clarissa. There's like different ways to say Clarissa. It's like Clarice, Claire, other versions of it. I've seen it before, but when it comes to like my actual name being spelled out and said, that's my full name, Clarissa. And I was just amazed. I was like, oh my God, yes, I will spend $7 for this book. I want a book with an author's name, Clarissa, in my house. So I purchased it. And honestly, I did not even really open it. I was like kind of skimming through it, but I just really bought it because of the author's name. And I had it with me. I had it in my little book collection of maybe one day reading, but it didn't feel like the time to do so. And I kind of left it as it is and kept going along my journey of manifesting this beautiful new life I was willing to live into. During that time, of course, that's when I was not just manifesting from this vision board, but I was also writing down a lot of manifestations. I was just like in this level of like, let's see if this works. Let's see the many ways that manifesting can work. And, some manifestations, again, they didn't fully come through because some of the times I was coming from a place of wishful thinking. And then sometimes I was coming from this place of like full on alignment, like full on downloads, dreams coming through. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm manifesting. Like I'm calling that in. I'm confirming that. And one of them was this beautiful home that I'm in. So eventually, during that 6-month process, we ended up finding a beautiful home. And I actually dreamt of this home. I had a dream that there was big windows and the sun shining through and like just beautiful, vibrant light always in the house. And a 2-bedroom, 2-bath was what I wrote down. And soon enough, it came into our vortex. My boyfriend and I ended up finding something in a beautiful neighborhood. So it was a beautiful transition that led to something greater within the house. So like that ended up being, more realistic than moving to Malibu. But Malibu was still there. Like I didn't remove it. I didn't touch it. I just kind of left it as is. And eventually just kept going along my journey of showing up for myself in other ways through the holistic practices, being inspired. And eventually I ended the sessions with Danielle because it was only 2 months. And I still continued to follow her, still continued to be inspired by her and like just kind of figuring out my way through life. At that time, also wanting to really manifest friends and a community to be with. And eventually I saw Danielle post something so yummy that became another beautiful portal. She posted on her story that she was in a book club, and that book club ended up being the beautiful book with the author's name, Clarissa. That book's name is Women Who Run with the Wolves. And I didn't really think much of it, only the fact that Danielle had posted it and I was willing to do anything to get into her circle. And that became like initiation of like, oh my gosh, I get an opportunity to hang out with her, to hang out with her friends, and have this whole moment with a book club, like that I found at a meditation store, like a studio. It was phenomenal. Like, cherry on top of like, oh yes, So I took that invitation. I ran with it. She wasn't really sending out an invitation. It was just like her taking a photo of her book and saying she's at book club. But I took it as an invitation, an initiation of like, hell yeah, like, can I join? And one thing led to another where she was like, yes, join. And so she sent me the address, and the address is in Malibu. And so this is where it starts to get really juicy on the fact that like with that curiosity and that fun and that flow, I get invited and I get to go. And I arrive there. It becomes just this whole other rabbit hole of like a vortex that I'm jumping into, because then I'm really starting to read this book and realizing, I mean, it's all in the title, I should have known, but like realizing that this is about the wild woman nature. This is about owning and claiming your truth and being able to express yourself and just really being in that feminine flow. And so with putting those two and two together, and of course now zooming out and reflecting back, all the women that were there in this circle were just that. Those women that were ready to express themselves, that were so wild and carefree, but in a very beautiful, graceful way. And the host specifically, who became my bestie, was the one I became so admired by, because she held herself so nicely, so beautiful. The place she was living in was so beautiful that I was just starstruck with like everything that was being presented. Like, it felt so yummy in my soul that I was able to be in that environment with those women. What a journey life can be. Just like the moon, we are constantly going through phases, being asked to pause, grow, take leaps of faith, and surrender to the process. And while we're moving through our cycles in our personal life, there's something magical about being a part of a tribe that just gets it. A community where you can fully be yourself while gathering with like-minded souls who are also nurturing their spirit and moving through life with intention. That's why my mom and I created Sacred Circle, an online bi-weekly gathering held on Zoom for those craving deeper connection, spiritual support, and soulful community. Inside the circle, we create magic. We move, we breathe, reflect, and most importantly, honor the alchemists that we all are, turning our personal experiences into medicine and truth. It's a grounding check-in with our soul that happens twice a month. If you've been looking for a spiritual community to connect with, click the link in the description to sign up for our next Sacred Circle gathering, and let's honor our journeys together. And suddenly that book became like a whole other world that, it led me into a whole other world, a whole other way of manifesting what was on my vision board to even just a greater extent, not from where I expected it to be, but from where it was aligned to be in my life. Every step that I took was leading me to something greater. It's not just about the car or the house or the relationship, but it's about something greater that's in alignment to what is going to hit all categories of your life, not just one. It was about the alignment of the relationships. I was also finding community and the purpose and collaboration all through it, because eventually, as Jen and I over the years began to really be able to spend time together, and I was able to go to Malibu, spend time in Soho House, and spend time in the beach and have picnics and sleepovers, and also co-host wellness events. So I think this is the funny part too, is right, like I found this book at a meditation center with the idea of hosting sound baths, and also hosting classes that were based off of like guided meditations. And what do you know? And I get something better and greater from that. I get it in Malibu. I get the experience to have it in a place, in a sacred container that I had, only seen a breadcrumb of, but received something greater from that beautiful idea that I had planted and was going to throw away because it didn't look like how I wanted it to look like. When it comes to creating and making manifestations happen, especially with your vision board is being created because you're having this downloaded moment, right? Like of you connecting with this future self of you. But your vision board is just showing you just breadcrumbs. It's just showing you the tip of the iceberg of like your whole life's journey, or how far extended that manifestation goes. And it's something you have to live through. So basically your perception and your reality of where you're at is very limited. It's not fully the perception, the reality of where your higher self or this future version of yourself is. And so understanding that gives you the opportunity to know that the control that you might feel, the ego pushes that you might feel, the wishful thinking might need you to see that it's a matter of knowing that you're probably still stuck in thinking that you're going to have this manifestation right here, right now, with the way you are wanting it to happen. But instead, when you zoom out of that, when you surrender my will into thy will, when you let the feminine follow, intuition and feminine, very connected to the God consciousness, very connected to the crown, and very connected to also understanding when I say surrender and flow, that means also letting God come in and trusting the process of where you're going next. So basically, yes, you are just surrendering to this beautiful version that you've yet to live into, this beautiful vision that has yet to be expressed, but again, just in a different way than what you may expect it to be. So if something in your vision board feels out of reach right now, it's all good in the hood, because it's only feeling like that for a moment in time. It's only feeling like that because maybe you're just way too focused on it and it needs room to grow. It needs room to manifest. And if you have a vision board like mine, or if you have any writing of visions of manifesting things you want, don't just focus on one thing. There's so many other categories of your life that you could be working on that basically all tie in together. So it's like a domino effect. It's not just one version of your life you're working on, but it's everything. Everything that makes you who you are and what you want to be is what you're working on. When you can follow what feels aligned and what's going to expand you, and also follow your curiosity, you will be led more deeper into the initiated waters of where and how it's going to happen. It'll all be configured out when you let curiosity come in, when you let your heart be expanded and you feel into the moments, because life is a feeling process. So your vision board is a feeling process. And again, it's to a certain extent that you could utilize your will, but then at a certain point you will have to switch over to just feeling into it, living and breathing into it instead. So enjoy your journey when it comes to manifesting. And if you have any comments or questions or concerns, or like want to chat it up, be sure to reach out to me, especially when it comes to spirituality or the woo-woo. Your girl has got you. And if you would like to hear more about being in your essence, be sure to follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Essence of Risk. You can also visit my website at essenceofrisk.com, or you can also listen to more podcast episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And I'll see you in the next one, Soul Babes. Bye for now.